Sup, freaks? It's your boy Marty Bent here to introduce this episode of Tales from the Crypt. I had the immense pleasure of sitting down with Matt Odell and a good Anon friend of ours, Openoms, who's been working on some incredible projects throughout the last couple of years. We talked about a number of them in this podcast, mainly his JoininBox, his hardware box that allows people to run JoinMarket easily. We talked about JoinMarket specifically and how their CoinJoin implementation is set up and the scenarios and incentives that go into that particular CoinJoin implementation. On top of that, we talked about privacy. Obviously, JoinMarket comes up. You're naturally going to talk about privacy, both the protocol layer and on Lightning, how you can be more private on Lightning and the intricacies of running on Tor and displaying your public node and sending invoices and key send and a bunch of stuff. Very enlightening episode. Get very deep into the technicals. I think you guys are going to like this, especially if you are interested in the technical details of how to use Bitcoin privately. This is a wealth of knowledge. This episode of Tales from the Crypt was brought to you by our good friends at the Cash App. You freaks already know all about them. They're helping us do a number of things. They're helping us stack sats, helping us stack slivers of stonks. If you want, you don't have to. And they have their incredible boost program where they're helping us save money at partner merchants. Going back to the sat stacking, they just finally rolled out dollar cost averaging. You can now set up an automatic buy cadence on the Cash App, so you don't even have to think about it. You can set it and forget it. On top of that, they've made sats the standard throughout the app. They're rolling that out to everybody soon, as well as the DCA function. And then with the stonks, you can stack a sliver of a stonk via Cash App investing. I know a lot of you freaks don't care about stonks, but you know what? The option's there. If you want it, you can use it. If your favorite company's stonks is just a little too expensive, you can buy as little as $1 via Cash App investing because it's all connected to your bank account directly, or if Cash App is your bank account, because they're now offering those services as well. You can get your own checking account number and routing number. You can get your paycheck direct deposited into Cash App now. Because of this, there's no 4 to 5 day waiting periods. You can start investing and stacking sats today. Cash App investing specifically is a subsidiary of Square, a member SIPC, and as always, make sure you use the code stacking sats. That's one word, STACKINGSATS. You're going to get $10, and $10 is going to go to our good friends at Owls Lacrosse. That's Owls Lacrosse. Woo! Woo! How many licks does it take to get to a center of a Tootsie Pop? The age-old question. Enjoy this episode, freaks. Okay.
You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free.
If you talk about a Fed just gone nuts, all the central banks going nuts.
So it's all acting like safe haven.
I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
I mean, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin.
If you're not paying attention, you probably should be.
Cheers, guys.
What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent here for another interview. I think this is the fourth interview we've ripped this week. Matt Odell is joining me for this one again. He just popped a bottle at 12:18 p.m. Eastern, and our guest just popped a bottle. Matt, how you feeling?
What's up, freaks? Excited for this one.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one too, because we're sitting down with somebody who I would consider a grinder, somebody who's been just head down building a bunch of stuff, whether it be hardware to make using JoinMarket easier with your full node, services that allow people to connect to Tor easier, projects on the Lightning Network, just all around fascinating projects and a fascinating human being. I'd like to introduce you freaks to Openoms. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's up, freaks? Thank you for having me, Marty.
No, thank you for coming on.
Hey, guys.
I'm like I said before we hit record, I'm sorry it took this long. Just going down your GitHub page and the amount of work you've put in over the years is laudable and fascinating, and especially the breadth of the projects you worked on. Very, very different. It seems like you're hopping around from Lightning to CoinJoin implementations. And again, it's fascinating. You seem to be very privacy focused, which we like to talk about a lot here on TFTC, as you know. But before we get into all that, let's get into your tale. How the hell did you find Bitcoin, and why did you decide to start creating tutorials and building tools for Bitcoiners?
Right. Well, I'm not in for that long. Basically, first heard about it in like 2013, and looked up price was a couple of hundreds. I've looked up into how can I get this thing, and at the time I was just moving countries. I'm from living in Hungary originally, from just the edge of Eastern Europe, and been moving to England at that time. Didn't have much money, and just try to find my route, find my path, and looking at Bitcoin. This is very interesting, but I haven't got money for the new ASICs, and I see that they are deprecating in like half a year. Also, I cannot make a bank transaction to Japan or the US, so okay, let's leave it. And then it was back 2017 when I've sat down with a friend of mine who was like a chemical engineer, and he was saying that when we are running some mining rigs in our office, it's not an IT office, so what's that? And we have like a credit card, and we're putting out money in Germany from the ATMs. I mean, what do you do? So did you hear about Ethereum, Zcash? Right. So I mean, let's look into this. So I love the hardware. Love to build computers like gaming rigs when I was little, and then anything else afterwards. And then basically started to build some mining rigs like up to like 15 GPUs. Just in the flat, and then starting to learn about these things. And then I mean, it's quite clear if you start to just apply a little common sense that it is Bitcoin what you are in for. So I've kind of did this hardware building, made back the kind of investments to the hardware, sold it all, and just dove into learning more about Bitcoin and see how it is. Started to build a full node in. So this was like beginning of 2017, and then started to build my nodes in. Well, it took like a year really. In like 2018, found the Raspberry Board project, and then found the Raspberry Blitz project, which is originally was only kind of a scripted version of a written tutorial. And I just found out that I love this. And the hardware then becomes very cheap because you're building on like a Raspberry Pi or other little computer. And first you follow these tutorials, go line by line, and try to understand what's going on. And this is what we call the rabbit hole, right? It's completely from the technical side. I have no background in economics, or I try to leave myself out of politics as much as possible, sociology, and whatever, game theory. But the technicals which come to me, and then found a little time to kind of learn more. Registered to Twitter beginning of 2018, and it was just general Twitter, and then you find Bitcoin Twitter. That's just such a different word. And then I was so lucky that I've been somehow found out about the video boot camp of Justin Moon. You probably, I know he's been on the pod, and he's some fantastic teacher. He's so enthusiastic, and just kind of pushed out this knowledge mainly in Python, and then just to be able to get our hands dirty. Lots of people from that kind of crowd are out building stuff, and then it was like 2019, beginning of it, that I started to commit to this Raspberry Blitz project, which is it's a huge aggregate of everything. Really, that's why I'm able to look into these many things, because just working on implementing different services, just running on my own node, and then finding out how things work. And it's it's a very active community as well. It comes with the full FULMO crowd, the Berlin kind of Bitcoiners who did the Lightning conference. They have like numerous hack days going, so it is people you can interact with a lot. And then it just goes on since then. So it's a huge shout out to these people for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and just looking at your work, it seems you have a focus on three things, at least: hardware, privacy, and Lightning. What sort of drives you towards? Obviously, you said you're interested in hardware because you've been building gaming computers since you were a kid. But do you see a pain point in the privacy area of Bitcoin and sort of potential in Lightning? I don't want to ask any leading questions, but
well, Bitcoin. It does come to the big question of like self-hosting everything. There is this tendency, like open source software in itself, which you should be able to do everything with open source because that's the only safe thing you can bet on, you can trust. There is no point of trusting any other like either third parties or middlemen. They are everywhere. So, and Bitcoin is very pure in that you can just go from you want to have the full stack, the open source software acquiring the database of an open source software, and it's all coming together, this full synchronizing event, which is the Bitcoin kind of protocol. But then you need to run that on something, right? So you cannot just, I know Satoshi has wrote the first Bitcoin client on Windows, right? But you just cannot just spin up a Windows 10 and switch off, I don't know, the all the tracking built in and just host everything on yourself, because I wouldn't be able to sleep, right? So I want to see what the code is running, on the actual hardware, and if the best is if you can just take it apart and see what these chips are doing. Where are they coming from? Is there little rice which is radiating out to the nearest cell tower, or is there anything else you shouldn't see? So yeah, it is like open source hardware is just as important as open source software, but much more difficult. I am speaking a lot to like Gitminer, who is huge in this, and very adversarial in terms of approaching the hardware as well. He doesn't like Raspberry Pis, for example, which I do agree with. But there are some advantages. They are just made here in England next door, so no problem with the supply even there. Right. Oh. So yeah, full stack, open source. That's what I get to.
Well, let's get into some of the specifics that you built. Let's talk about JoinBox for a second. Like I was saying before we hit record, we talk a lot about CoinJoin implementations here. JoinMarket is one that probably doesn't get enough tick as it should, and you seem to have built a lot of products around JoinMarket. What was your idea behind the JoinBox particularly, and how does it work, and how are people using it?
Right. Yes. Well, this is this project, the JoinInBox, which is, to be honest, this will be all merged into the REST at some point. But the software is. But I really like the idea to keep the hot wallets which we are running on phones, PCs, Windows, and Raspberry Pis or other kind of Odroids, whatever small single board computer you get, to keep them separate, because all these softwares, especially, there are some languages which have more, and some languages which are more like clean in that sense, but they have like 10, 20, 30, hundreds of dependencies managed by other teams. They're open source, but there is no way that you would review all those. And then if you keep these on the same hardware, even if it's running on a VPS, there are ways to listen to the memory of the hardware which your software is running on, and you can see every other process. We know all these vulnerabilities which are public in every kind of processor. So a good way is just to not put anything on the same place. Like if you have valuable secrets, especially if you're doing something which is like about coin joining, where you would think of stacking up some significant liquidity, significant amount of Bitcoin, then you would definitely want to keep that in a completely separate box, which is JoininBox, which only runs an open source version of Linux Ambien, which is like verified and can be built from the source as well. And then you just put up JoinMarket, which is this wonderful work of mainly, and there are plenty of contributors, and it's going since 5 years, but it's mainly Waxwing, Adam Gibson, and like Chris Belcher and Christos Scopy, who are maintaining currently and built most of it. And I mean, it's just my part is just to work out an install script, and then eventually coming up with a little kind of menu, like terminal-based menu, like the rest of Blitzes, if you've seen how that looks like, for people to not need to look up all these comments which need to use JoinMarket, but just to be able to click on things. So, and then you deposit your Bitcoin. It won't hold any secrets. You will be obviously needing to give your password when you are sending Bitcoin or when you are running a yield generator. So providing continuous liquidity for a coin join pool. But if you verified everything and keep it as isolated as you can, it is fairly safe. I mean, this is the safest way I can think of, but this is an ongoing development, and all contributions are welcome.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's been the knock on JoinMarket up to this point. It's just been very hard to use. It seems like if you think that's a valid criticism, or do you think people have not given it enough, given a good enough try?
I think, I mean, it's quite. It has multiple kind of approaches how you can think of it, because the coin join thing is not made for the masses. It's not a scalable solution. It's on this level of like Bitcoin technology where we don't have signature aggregation and etc. Coin join transactions are huge. They are like 10-20 times bigger than normal send of Bitcoin. So, well, I agree with the on the privacy side that we should make every transaction a coin join, or every spend a coin join, as you say. But well, we cannot do it, right? So, well, JoinMarket has a kind of it has a filter. If you can set it up, then you will be able to use it too. And once you are okay to type in a couple of lines of comment into the comment line, then my experience was, and I see it in a lot of people, that you actually don't want a graphical interface anymore, because it just gives you the freedom and this kind of control of every little parameter which you can do. And then obviously you can do a very good kind of practice, or you can do it cheaper than others, or you can just mess it up and not, you might not be doing a very good quality coin join as some say, but the fact that it cannot be fingerprinted very well. Every parameter is kind of randomized, and you can do whatever you want, and people do a lot of different things. It does make it, it's a very versatile tool. You can do, so in JoinMarket you can already, so there are no so-called postnex tools. The whole thing is a tool which you can use for postnex as well, because you can send a payment with a chosen amount with a coin join, with like by default with 7-9 other participants who are offering their coins in these maker setups, in these yield generators. You can just take them, choose your amount from anything, from like 100,000 satoshis to 100 bitcoins, right? and then you can send the payment with a CoinJoin. And if you do a self-payment, like you can even use your Volt UTXO app, and there is no change at all, right? There is, and you can do it in a repeated fashion. You can do it there is a script called a tumbler, which you fund, and it stumbles through multiple accounts and ends up sending the deposits. I mean, the rest of it, obviously, the on-chain fees will be significant. If not, the CoinJoin fees are minimal, and they come out on 3 addresses which you gave it in the beginning, with all the links broken from the deposit and from each other as well. So it is, it's a tool which is, you cannot build a very nice GUI on it because there is no one button to push. There are a lot of buttons.
There's a lot of ways you can use it.
I have a couple of things to unpack here. Well, first of all, for the freaks, just to provide some context, with JoinMarket, there's no centralized coordinator. There's a maker and a taker in each transaction. So the maker is the person offering up their coins to be CoinJoined with, and they charge a fee. They get to pick what fee they charge. And what Openoms was discussing earlier with the yield generator is that maker needs to keep their funds online all the time. Whenever they want to be offering this service, they have to keep their funds online. So he was saying how if you run it on a dedicated box, you reduce your threat model because they are online, because they are hot. You want to reduce the amount of attacks that like where you could be susceptible from an attack. As a follow-up here, those fees that are so we talked about the lack of there is a GUI. It's not like a
yes.
The install process is not a very simple install process, which I think holds back some adoption. Just for instance, a lot of the freaks use Mac, which I believe is a step up from Windows. It's not Linux, but it's still a significant step up. And for them to be able to just install like a DMG file or something, I think would bring a lot of users in. Like if it was like a 4-click GUI, and you don't have to have as much. Maybe just like the current GUI, you can't be a yield generator, you can't be a maker, but you have like a couple preset buttons and stuff that you can use. With this type of thing, like the more people that use it, the more effective it is for everyone, right? So, I don't want to be the guy, like, I'm not trying to complain when I'm not building it myself because I can't fucking do that. So I don't want to be that guy, but I think it would be a huge step forward just for the project and for privacy and Bitcoin in general. What I wanted to actually talk about was, so you mentioned it in passing, the CoinJoin fees are minimal. The makers get to choose what their fees are, and for one reason or another, they're have always been extremely low. It kind of reminds me of like the lightning fee situation. So like part of it is lack of demand, but I wonder, like, are the incentives aligned properly? Like, should we expect to see those fees go up? Why haven't those fees gone up? Do we want to see those fees go up? Who's keeping their wallets hot and charging basically nothing for it?
Well, I would step in here too. Like it seems to me that JoinMarket has always been sort of more or filled with, and all people hate the word altruistic here, but Bitcoiners who just want better privacy overall. And I think the emergence of Fidelity Bonds is a good example of that too. People being willing to lock their UTXOs up for X amount of blocks. That seems a bit more like just in the spirit of better privacy as well. But no, it is interesting. Do you think fees will rise?
Well, I mean, it's Chris Belcher himself has been speaking a lot about the locked funds for civil resistance, which is these bonds coming to the joint market. So I wouldn't go into that. It's a very, very interesting thing, and that is improving the kind of the CPU resistance, so improving lowering the chance of like nefarious, malicious parties will be part of the coin joins, basically. But as I said, listen to that podcast with Stefan, because that is fantastic. How the guy who built it explains it as well. Regarding installing JoinMarket, it's that's the steps I like to kind of cover. That I've literally have a pull request merged into JoinMarket. It is one character change, which does help to install on Debian Linux, because there's been found something which stopped the dependencies listing properly. But the whole thing is that I was doing with this install script for the Raspberry, which does it in a way that it is safe as possible in that kind of environment, that it does create like a separate user, a separate Linux user, which other users have no access to. So, the funds are reasonably safe from the other software running on the Raspberry, and also, for example, the LND hot wallet is safe from the dependencies of JoinMarket and so on, right? I mean, there are like attack services all over the place. But as we have put, BTC Pay on the Raspberry, we have put, now JoinMarket as well. So it is now has a higher incentive to kind of, put that thing in a little metal box and chain it down, or to hide it. But so install scripts can help a lot. And now, you have it. I think I don't know how to actually think it's only like command line only, but I think you have the JoinMarket in. I know people who use it with my node, so it's kind of in there. But I mean, with the Raspberry, it's a question of going to the menu with the services and just clicking on it, and you can see how it is. It runs the script which you're supposed to be doing yourself, line by line. So it shows you what is happening, which I found the most beautiful, and that's how I learned a lot of things, and that's how I got excited about software development. That look, this is happening. I can actually modify this thing and play with it as I like. So that's one. Two is Waxwing especially is he listens to these kind of concerns about being difficult to run, and he did actually come up with an app image for Linux already, which is a pre-packaged JoinMarket with a Qt kind of GUI, and you could try it. I've only seen it kind of exposed on the IRC channel of theirs that most of these devs hang out. But I downloaded it, and you just click of a button literally, and this JoinMarket GUI kind of opens up. You can it will generate a wallet. You can fund it, and you can do these coin joins on demand, at the spot with the chosen amount.
That's great.
And that's fantastic.
Does
the GUI itself?
I didn't realize there was an app image. That's fantastic.
Well, I don't think it's published. I think it's experimental and for Linux only for now, but certain days were done. And it is, especially to make it run on Windows, it's a big challenge because, all the Python, all the kind of...
I'm fine with just saying fuck Windows. That should be like the first step.
Yeah, sure. Mac is yes, it's very similar, obviously. It's all Unix based. It is, it's possible, it's more easier to run. So I think that will be coming, hopefully. But in any case, you would need to run Bitcoin Core as well, because that's the only backend and which it needs. But you need that, right? You can run with a pruned node as well, so you don't need the very back of all the block history, but only the ones which are affected are having the transactions which are in your wallet. So that's not a big deal. You can do it on your computer, and then because it doesn't need the 500 gigabytes of storage or 300 gigabytes at minimum now, but it can be pruned down to 5 gigabytes or whatever. So you can run it on your laptop and then connect JoinMarket to it. And to use the on-demand, you don't need to be online all the time. You can just coin join to your Lightning wallet, fund your channels with funds without previous history. That is I think that's a very good use case of this thing, because you get no change if you change the amount. If you choose the amount, you get no change, and then if you want to open a Lightning channel for 6 million satoshis, then you will have 6 million satoshis, which has been part of a coin join with 8 participants.
Okay, before we jump into Lightning privacy,
Right.
let's just go back to the JoinMarket fees for a second. Because this is something that I first discovered JoinMarket when it first came out. So what was that, like 2013 or early 2014? And
no, I think it's 2016 officially, but 2015, 2016.
Was it that late?
Well, is that late?
Oh, I don't know. Anyway, I was like a massive JoinMarket cheerleader, right? And what I really liked about it is that built-in incentive, right? That you get paid to provide coin join liquidity, which is something that Bitcoiners love incentives. We love like well-designed incentives, right? So now it's 2020, and fees are basically at like 0, right?
Yes.
So what do we think about that?
So what? Right. So let's see. Why would I run JoinMarket? Right. So let's see. I have it on my separate little box. Call it JoinInBox. Call it anything you are setting it up with, or have it on the REST wallet, and you get the wallet and you fund it. For what? To achieve privacy with your coins, to get rid of the history first of all, and then going forward, you want to spend without exposing your wallet and exposing the previous transactions you did. So if I just let's say I just leave my coins there, I will start to run this a yield generator, and they will be coin joined by other people, and they will choose their amounts, so it will always leave back some change, but there will be so what is very good in this, that you get basically you generate a JoinMarket wallet. You get 5 wallets in one, which is like 5 accounts from the same seed, 5 derivation paths of the same wallet, and the funds will only move between the mixed depths, as they are called, if they are an output of a coin join. So if they are a change output, they will remain in the previous mixed depth. So they won't propagate unless they are private. And right, okay. So I mean that's how it works, but basically you get free privacy for your coins which you deposit there. So that's the gain. It's not the fees, which is a couple of hundred satoshis, but that you don't need to pay any of the chain fees, and you also don't need to deal with it. It just happens.
But
so you have a reduced chance of sort of combining private UTXOs in that case, right? So you're basically have 5 wallet accounts, and the change gets dumped into one account, and it doesn't go into one of the other 4 until it has a certain anonymity set.
Yeah, it's kind of it's so-called tumbles through. So you deposit to the first mixed depth, which is called mixed depth 0 for the sake of it, and they can only go through to the mixed depth 1 if they are an output of a coin join, and then if it gets coin joined again, it goes down to 2, 3, 4, back to the 0 again, but only the part which is coin joined goes through. The change falls back, and then it will be part of another coin join when it will be going forward or not. So by the time it tumbles through your 3, 4, 5 mix depths, it will be coin joined 5 times. It will be 5 times part of a coin join. So this is kind of I think what, for example, Samurai does with the postmix, with having a different postmix wallet from the deposit wallet. Here, every wallet is a deposit wallet and a postmix wallet at the same time, depending how long you leave it.
But
that's fascinating.
But makers don't get as good privacy gains as takers, right? Takers are constructing the transaction.
Yes.
So it's hard. It's hard to necessarily quantify. There is privacy gain there, but it's hard to quantify it. But I mean, the makers could then do a taker transaction later if they wanted to.
Yes, that's the recommendation. That's what we should do, and I mean that's what we are like having discussions on. Really, that I mean that is the algorithm which does help with kind of not to do the basic kind of problems, not to merge change with the coin join, not to do the like automatic kind of send over feature is not there, right? even if when you're sending, if you're emptying this wallet, which has like 5 accounts in it, you can only empty it account by account. So you need to do at least 5 transactions separate, which obviously those UTXOs which are in a mixed-up will be kind of merged, and this has some privacy negative on it, but you can do it just one by one, and you can coin join out by UTXO by UTXO. So it's a new what to do with it, and so to use it as a taker and maker intermittently, that's the actual recommendation. That's what you should do. You just leave it running, and when you want to use it, you want to pay someone or send it to somewhere else, then you coin join out.
Right.
And so in this incentive structure too, like the lower fee, even though it's lower, would incentivize more coin joins over time. And even though you're getting a lower fee, you're getting more accumulation of that lower fee. Is that the thesis?
Yes. So here, I mean, another thing is, which is not very, I mean, obvious, like compared to the Lightning kind of fees, that here the coin join liquidity doesn't go away, right? It's getting coin joined, and then it's still there, right? So it's just goes through these mixes from round by round, and you have usually between like 50 and 100 offers on the order book, which you can look at anytime. Sometimes the IRC kind of IRC channel is down, or the server which is reading these IRC channels are down. So at the moment, for example, it's not showing up, but if you run your own, you can read the IRC server yourself, and that's what the script does. So it doesn't matter that you cannot see it on like Voxwing server. It's your own server. It works completely independently from that, and there are usually like between 5 and 100 offers. And at a time, because of the limitation of the communication on the IRC, which is where this is coordinated at, you can maximum like safely do like 9 coin joins, because it's a lot of like signatures sent back and forth. So you can do like a coin join with 9 participants. So out of this 100, you set your own limits. What is the maximum fee you want to pay, and what is the amount, obviously. And from there, out of the 100, there will be only, for example, 20 offers which are valid within these limits, and then from that it will be a random choice of 7 to 8, 9 participants. And if you do it again, that there will be another random choice. So it might be the same kind of, well, it wouldn't be the same wallet. I mean, it might be the same wallet, but it may be a different mix depth of that wallet. So it will completely look as somebody else, even if it's the same kind of peer you are coin joining with. Yeah. So that's how the fees are paid off, either by coin join, so by time, like an absolute fee. So you get paid if you get into coin join, you get paid a fixed fee, or you get a relative fee, which is depending on the amount.
From my seat, I see the incentive as offering low fee JoinMarket liquidity as either being ideological, which Marty mentioned earlier. There's definitely a lot of ideological liquidity providers there that also want some additional privacy out of it. But I also have the concern that we have chain analysis companies in there providing liquidity. And this is like completely unfounded. I have never been able to back it up with any kind of evidence or anything. Like, they keep their lips sealed. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in Wasabi and Whirlpool as well, but those are newer. JoinMarket has been around for a while, and it's cheap. It's cheaper for them to Sybil JoinMarket because the fees are so low, and they get paid out to them instead of to a centralized coordinator. So do you share this concern? Have you thought about that at all? Or
well, it is, the thing is, the more offers you put up, the less chance that you will be coin joining only, because if you want to Sibyl someone, you need to be, so apart from the one who you are wanting to, uncover, you need to be all other parties in that coin join, right? So these things being randomized and just, 1, 2, 10, 20, 50 people putting up offers will, make this kind of Sibyl attack kind of quite high risk of, not working out, because it's just the same pool. And yes, I mean, there is, if I'm putting this offer up, I will probably put my fees down as well to a level where it is acceptable for myself to pay for it, right? So it will be the fraction of the on-chain fees. And that's because I want to see it working. And yes, I mean, if there is a privacy benefit, which is, okay, I take it that it is questionable, and there is a privacy a chain analysis company doing the maker part, then they do know all the other UTXOs kind of, where they're coming from, basically. So if there are like put 3 UTXOs into a join, then they will know that it's coming from that kind of peer. But that's true for any kind of coordinator. And here, the coordinators are changing from round to round, because it's the taker who does decide on the amount, and does decide on the time, and does do automatically construct the transaction as well.
So the randomized nature of the coordination sort of reduces the risk of a Sybil?
Well, yes, that is. So the randomized participants, so you can never tell which peer you will be coinjoining with, right? And also, even if you set a fee, I mean, you can configure everything to your liking, but the default is if you set a fee for a coin join, or like a desired like on-chain fee, minor fee, even that will be randomized for like 20% up and down. So you won't even know what you will be using, even you, right? So it's not it's very easy to, so you can't plan these coin joins in a way that you will be able to uncover others. I'm not saying you cannot speak in absolutes, but it is difficult, and it just looks like a whole mess, and that's the aim.
So how would Fidelity Bonds take this to another level? Like
Right. So, well, I just know this because I listened to this podcast, right? So, I'm no expert on it, but the thing is that if you send some coins to a burner address, or better, you send some coins to a time-locked address, they'll give you a kind of a score, and according to the score, the takers will be more likely to include your UTXOs as the maker, right? So it's just it's a trust, it's skin in the game. So the more coins you lock, you more kind of skin you have, more skin in the game you have, and it will be more difficult and more expensive to cover the whole offer book with.
It increases the cost of the attack we just discussed.
Absolutely, yes, but it's already not free, but and already low risk. But this is some next level kind of solution, right? So this is obviously experimental, and we'll see how it works out. But it is a very, very kind of subtle idea, and I think it will.
Yeah.
From some side, I mean, you have other advantages of other kind of implementations, but from the Sibyl side, this will be taking the lead for sure.
No, and it's very interesting to me as well. I was mentioning participants in JoinMarket being somewhat altruistic, but the addition of Fidelity Bonds, it actually makes sense. If you have a low time preference, it probably does work out in your advantage if you think privacy on Bitcoin is important for the inherent value in the future. So you probably could also make, even if fees are somewhat low, it is a little bit more expensive to put them in Fidelity Bonds, but comparatively low to other CoinJoin implementations. Just the overall value that were provided to the network by you providing basically the ability for other Bitcoiners to CoinJoin their UTXOs would increase the value of the token overall, which is worth the investment if you're in this for the long run.
But
Sure. Or if people trusting you more, they were more likely to take your expensive offers.
but if you're a chain analysis company, you can just put up the Fidelity bond and then hedge it with a short.
It's a very interesting
I'd
point.
run a great chain analysis company. I never
Wait,
fucking do it.
so you'd put up a Fidelity bond, but you'd have to reveal that you are doing this, right, at some point?
Well, you're chain analysis, so you could just take a short out on CME or something, right?
I know, but then you sort of blow yourself up. At some point, the short would only pay off if you come out and say, "Hey, we've been the owners of these Fidelity bonds." So you'd have to unmask yourself at some point, right?
What do you mean? Why would you? You just hedge yourself. I don't know how financial hedging works, but people do it all the time, don't they? You can just make it so there's limited because the biggest increase in cost, right, is actual price of Bitcoin risk with Fidelity bonds, and then the biggest risk for being a liquidity provider is hot wallet risk, right?
But you're paying two fees then if you have a short open. You gotta fund that short, and then you gotta fund the Fidelity
But your
bond as
chain
well.
analysis, you're charging millions of dollars to governments around the world, right? It's not a free product.
Yeah, but I mean the reason for a hedge is to make sure you're not spending more money while you're engaged in that type of action, not to make it more expensive. It's just sort of level out your fees.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it's a value add product for them to be able to track CoinJoin usage more effectively. They are able to sell that product, right?
Yeah, but why would they even open up a short if they could just not tell people that they?
Well, because if they have the Fidelity bond, if they have the Fidelity bond, then because of what you just said, right? What you said is the Fidelity bond lines up with a low time preference that you think Bitcoin price will go up long term, right? And I find it hard to believe that these chain analysis companies think that will be the case when they're trying to destroy user privacy. So if that's the case, then they hedge themselves. If for some reason, the guy running chain analysis is a compliance bro bull, then by all means, he can just take out the Fidelity bond, and then he has low time preference too. So that either way, I think it'll provide, it's an improvement. It's definitely a big step in the right direction, but it's not foolproof, right? It's the same issue I have with proof of stake, where you're staking a bunch of coins, but then you can just hedge yourself. You can just hedge yourself in the markets. But
why would you hedge yourself with a short if you are the chain? The point would be that you're the chain analysis company with a Fidelity bond. You already have unmasked everybody, and your incentive would be not to let everybody know that and just go along with that. And the reason you would open a short is if you were to reveal yourself, be like, hey, you guys aren't as private as you thought, and theoretically the market would fall because that privacy utility would be depreciated a little bit, right?
Well, and how much would it affect if hundreds of bitcoins are just put in Fidelity bonds, and that reduces the liquidity, especially if it's coming from kind of weekends a chain analysis company, right? I mean, there are a couple of things to look into.
Well, that's good for the price of Bitcoin, so that's a benefit. But
exactly.
It's a similar threat model as Lightning, right? Is that the idea is that for you to attack it, you have to lock up funds, driving the price up and driving the cost of the attack up. It just depends how dedicated the attacker is at that point, how deep their pockets are.
Yeah. No, I agree. How expensive does it get? And how much of JoinMarket could they overtake would be the question. You'd have to assume.
But again, you have these Fidelity bonds, but you don't need to use them. Just like you can pay a low fee, but you can also just leave it at default, and you will be randomly paying high fee and low fee. You might, you can set up your config in a way to, take the Fidelity Bonds into account, and you can just not do it. And again, if they want to Sibyl, again, they need to be all of the other participants, right? So if there is one lurking in the CoinJoin who is not the chain analysis company, their effort is pointless and their money is wasted. At least the time, the opportunity risk is wasted.
Well, even if it would have to be two people within the round, right? Because if it's one, that everybody else but you, that one person but you. But if it's two, it's like, all right, I know two people join with us. I don't know which one is which after this is done.
Yeah, well, but we are not joining with two. We usually do it with 8 others, right?
Yeah. Interesting. That's crazy.
It is
the rabbit holes you can fall down in the game theory that comes into play.
Yes, and then it tries to follow the philosophy of all these groups, which all that have right points. Some are have stronger reasoning than others, and also it's fluctuating in time. At some point, some are coming up with a very new novel thing and prove it right, and then someone else comes up with another thing. It's just it's really fascinating to watch. And these are all kind of at least I really like. So the other thing why I was starting to play with JoinMarket, that I actually love to read the code because it's I cannot say simple, but clean enough nature, and I can read Python, right, and also some Bash. So that's to the advantage. And also, I've been in a very lucky position that I've been attending to some physical events where I was able to meet these people, and have some beers with them and actually, get their opinions on, things they wouldn't. I just put out publicly. No, I wouldn't say that, but it's just to get to know people and just learn from them like that. It's it feels very supportive, and it just makes it much more easy to pick up the knowledge and the how to of these. But this is a learning process. There's no way to tell what's the best. For sure.
Yeah, Matt and I.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking that there might be things which I'm pretty sure that people won't agree with all of the things I've said, and probably will be the case that I will be not thinking the same, and after reading another bunch, right? So,
yeah. No, I was gonna say Matt and I interviewed Mehdi Tawar last night, who's a core contributor working on a P2P network, actually trying to help out with privacy too, with rebroadcasting and stuff like that. So it's funny how privacy touches many different areas of the stack, whether it be just how transactions are relayed via nodes or how UTXOs are coordinated in a CoinJoin to how Lightning is used. There's so many different variables that come into play. But like you just mentioned, it is, and Matt tweeted it out this morning, Bitcoiners, when you meet them in person, especially people who are building stuff, are more than willing to be like, hey, you want to help out? Yeah, let's talk about this. Let's figure this out. We could use all the help we can get. And it's just incredible to see more and more people sort of come to this realization that this is the Wild West. We can build the future that we want. And that's what I wrote about this morning, actually. It's we can exit the current system and build a better system. We are building a better system. And so how's that sort of felt for you personally, somebody who doesn't have a software development background as a professional, but is helping out in big ways with software development in the Bitcoin space?
All I can say that the support in these communities. I mean, all these people, most of the people who I've been interacting with are basically in Bitcoin as their hobby, right? So they have a fiat job, as most of them are, or I mean, very few. And even they are so lucky that they are living off Bitcoin, they wouldn't, they better not expose that fact, right? So it's just, I mean, I was drawn to programming since I had a computer from the age of 12, and then I was there at the end of high school, to see okay, what kind of university I'm going to, and I'm ended up at the medical university, but that's not. That didn't stop me being interested in technology and just playing with these things in all my free time. And then, the longer you go, I was just thinking, oh, should I? I mean, I had a lot of friends who are like software developers, IT professionals, and I mean, they are doing well. They are even now, they're able to work from home. They are, can do their own stuff from wherever they want to, and just being able to be creative and just create something in this virtual but just a real world is something which gives a lot. It gives a lot of pleasure, right? So once I found something which is really worth to be like enthusiastic for, all the incentives of Bitcoin, of just learning how it works and just seeing it growing. It's I cannot really get rid of it. So there is so many things I must start to use, and the way I'm doing, I'm just trying to document what I'm working on, and then it comes with a lot of feedback as well. So basically, this is free tuition. So people just throw at me that, look, I mean, this is not really right what you're doing here. But most of the times I need to do something or build something. But it's not just true to me, but for example, any kind of contributor that you build it and you see it working, and you might have a theory what it will cause, but then when it's out in the wild, then you will see what comes of it, right? It's the same with the whole Lightning Network. It's like coin joins, different kind of coin join approaches. Everyone thought that it's like that approach is the best approach. Obviously, that's what they went for it, right? But then, there are a lot of aspects and a lot of things like, being on chain, being private from network point of view, being CP resistant, costing people money, having center coordinators. These are a lot of questions. All right. Try not to ramble here too much.
No, I love the passionate rants. It is, again, going back, it's a wild west. And so this is a good transition. I know Matt wanted to touch on this stuff, like privacy on the Lightning Network. Like, how does it work? Like, between just the way transactions and messages are routed on the network, on the Lightning Network, to running it on Tor versus ClearNet, and what are the advantages and disadvantages? Like, how much privacy do you get? Even if you're running on ClearNet, do you get any at all versus running it through Tor?
Yeah, well, so, I mean, the most important thing is, yes, run your Lightning nodes behind Tor, because otherwise, would you plaster your money out in the window? Like, would you just have your wallet there in the clear? I don't think so. Basically, anyone who knows an employee at your internet service provider, or an employee at this internet service provider, or just an averagely gifted hacker, they can get out the information about which IP address is registered to whom and where do they live, and what are the things they do as well, right? What do they buy? What car they drive? How their how their house looks like, and then is there a Lightning node with like 10 Bitcoin on it, and I just need to pick it up and go. I mean, obviously it's not that straightforward, but that's the kind of threat model you need to think of, that you don't want to just advertise that, look, I have this here. And utilize the Tor network, which just hides your IP address, because your public key, if you are a routing node and your public channels, will be all over the place. Even if you have private channels only, you show an invoice or click in on an LN URL, or want to receive key send or something, then you will be exposing your public key, and that will be tied to your IP address.
Yeah, we found this out the hard way. We had our node stolen.
Right.
Before
well, that's been a very unfortunate event, but kind of foreseeable,
Yeah.
With the publicity you get.
So what do you think the future of privacy on Lightning is? Do you think people use the second layer more because it provides better privacy if we get a certain threshold of nodes running behind Tor? You think it doesn't matter? It's 6 of one hand, half a dozen in the other.
I mean, that's one thing. That's like using a routing node, and routing node is this Uncle Jim's model. You say that I can connect. I can have a model. I can have a channel to the routing node of my friend or of my or a company I choose, because it's not even it's not a custodianship. You will be just routing through them, and you have some privacy trade-off because of that. So they will know the most about your transactions. And if you are running your routing node yourself, then you are exposing very little of that private only mobile wallet you are having in your pocket, and you are like paying your whatever services you want for Bitcoin. So that's the most obvious and most important thing, that payments are basically private. If it's like more hops, you cannot see where the payment is coming from. So you receive a Lightning payment, you receive a key send payment. Well, there is like cryptographic evidence, and you see that your direct peer has sent it to you, but where the payment was started, there is you will have no clue. So you don't expose any of your, like, if you pay with a UTXO, that UTXO has a whole history. If you were not careful with the coin joins, you can basically track it back to the whatever Coinbase transaction, right? When it was born, but, or the multiples of them. But then with Lightning, you just receive a payment, and you wouldn't see it. So that's different from having like a private node, but private payments are a thing already.
Unless you control all the hops in between.
Well, that's not all the hops. Like receiving a payment. So this is like sending a payment is very private,
right?
Because you are not exposing anything there, right?
Unless they control all the hops.
Well, I was gonna say this gets taken to a whole nother level of something like PTLCs get implemented, right? So like what Matt's describing, sort of that heuristic gets thrown out the window.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you can infer, I mean, there is this attack which like René Picard and Sergey, I can't look up his name at the moment, but they're researching and putting a paper out that basically you can probe the whole Lightning network with like very low floods. I mean, also like Chris Belcher was talking about this, and there are like multiple articles that you can probe the whole Lightning network for a cost of like £50 or $50 or whatever, and you will be able to see what the actual balances are on the channels, because those are not exposed by default, right? So you can see the capacity of the public channels. So that's what both of the peers have in that channel, but you cannot see how much each peer has from that. So when there is a payment coming, you wouldn't be able to like track it back that, well, on that channel, the funds on that peer's side has just got lower, so this payment must have come from there, unless you probe every channel at the same time, obviously. I mean, this is less a cost limit. It's rather, it needs a lot of like computational capacity, and the more convoluted the Lightning network, the more nodes, the more channels there are, it will be not, very difficult to kind of have a view of the whole thing at the same time. So, or you will need to have a lot of probing nodes and coordinate them very well.
I guess the point I was trying to make is, and I guess we'll go into this in a second, the sender has way better privacy right now than the receiver does, just in general.
Exactly.
But when it comes to sender privacy, who they're paying through, which nodes they're paying through, really matters, right? Because they might be 3 hops, but it might be 3 LN big nodes. Then it's the same owner that gets all the hops. He knows all the channel balances. He sees the payment go through. If it goes through like a Bitstamps node and then Coinbase's node and then goes to who's receiving it, and both of them are sharing with governments or whatever, then you have a similar situation, right?
Yes, absolutely. That's why it's the best to have your routing node and connect to it with a channel, right?
Yeah.
And then you know, no one will be able to see, even if it's 3. I mean, you know, I don't want to depict Alan Big as a negative player. I think he's doing great service to the network, right? But he's a potential, right? But whatever, KYC exchanges, Bitfinex, Bitstamp, that's run a node as well, right? And a couple of them already.
Yeah, Coinbase definitely doesn't have a node. That's just some alternative timeline.
No way.
Yeah. So yeah, if you're behind your own node, then that is great. But then put your node behind Tor, so it will be not obvious that it's in your apartment, right? Or wherever it is. Even if it's on a VPS, that's even worse, because if you are having your node on the ClearNet in a VPS, then the guy who works there will just come to that rack and, you know, pull it out, and has potential to kind of crack your key.
But you know, all the LN big nodes are in VPSs on ClearNet, right?
Yeah, I've seen those IPs, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all in like Virginia and Delaware, right, or something like that.
So I mean, yes, but I mean, what would happen if someone would go and attack them? I mean, that would be,
maybe they are the attack.
You know, right. Yes, but you can still attack. You can still try to, you know, steal it, right? I mean, I don't know how much. Like one has like 40, 80 bitcoins and stuff like that. He has altogether has like 400 bitcoins.
He's like he's half the public network, or she.
Yes, well,
or they.
Now, I mean, going up in numbers a lot. It's like 5% increase, and we are almost hitting the 1,000 on Lightning Network. The public capacity, I mean, imagine, you know, the private is obviously not appearing there. And this is not private in terms of...
Tor capacity right now is 42.4%.
But that's why we need more people to run their own routing node through Tor on their own hardware, not in a VPS. And it doesn't have to be big. It could be on the smaller side. Just it gives people more options. There's more routes that can be taken that don't go through these big ass routing nodes. We don't want it to be. It could be somewhat a hub and spoke, but we don't want it to be just like a complete hub and spoke.
Well, it seems like it's happening, right?
I mean,
what I'm more worried about is Tor compromise, because you have a bunch of Bitcoiners, so like Tor is just a CIA honeypot. Is that like that scares the crap out of me?
It still hides from my ISP, right? I mean, you know, it still hides my IP from next door guy. But yeah, just to be clear on the Tor capacity, you know, the Tor capacity are the nodes who are hiding their IP addresses, but the Lightning Network, like Bitcoin capacity, is public, right? They are public on the Lightning Network, but not public on the internet level, right? There are 2 layers here, 2 layers in terms of not only Bitcoin, but the actual like IT networking layer. So you have the internet layer where first, you know, the communication channels need to exist. And these are kind of obfuscated by Tor. But once you are on the Lightning Network, the channels are just between Lightning Network nodes. There is no Tor in there anymore, apart from the communication, but the payment actually just goes through between the nodes. And then, so you can have a public balance on Tor, and you will have public channels on Tor, behind Tor, on a node behind Tor as well. But what we cannot see is the private balances. So the balances in all of the Lightning wallets, because all of the mobile Lightning wallets are defaulting to private channels only. So they're not publishing their capacity. So we wouldn't see it. So anyone has balance in their Breeze wallet, in their Phoenix, in their Eclair, in their Zap, which is running on the phone, is, you know, that is not coming up in 960 bitcoins, which is now the public Lightning capacity. So it could be, a couple of thousands. You don't know.
BitMEX said 20%, I think.
Yeah, around there.
They based
20%
it
is
on
public.
they based it on channel disputes. Because that was the only time that they could pinpoint. There was an on-chain footprint that they could pinpoint.
The non-cooperative closes.
Yeah,
right?
it was uncooperative closes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 10% was the ratio of the public capacity?
Yeah,
or
the amount of them that was done on public channels versus the amount that were done in private channels. And then they extrapolated and they said maybe like 20% of public capacity is in private channels. So that would be like another 250 on top, right? No, a little bit less.
Like less than 200, a little bit less than 200.
Yeah, it's like another 180 on top.
That's a good amount of Bitcoin. I mean, I'm not going to try and do the math right now.
You say that 20% is in private channels, or 20% is in public?
20% is in private channels of the total.
20% of the total public channel capacity right now can be added on as private channels.
It's a guess. It's a guess.
Yeah.
But they're the only ones who tried to guess, so kudos.
I mean, if you're running a node, you probably have more on your public channels. If you're not running a node, then you have only in your private ones. So
the majority of private channels are probably mobile wallets, like you said.
Yes.
Yeah. The other,
but you can do private channels otherwise, just to hide your activity, and that's fun as well. Between two of your nodes, no one will know about that, and you can just like rebalance, shoot in like each direction. And then, I mean, that, for example, that's another thing which confuses this kind of probing attack, the private channels, because you cannot probe those. So then you cannot ever be sure that the change of the public, the change of a balance on a public channel, was it because it was paid out to somewhere you are looking, or was it just going to a private channel? It's not that easy. And also there is, proposals to kind of stop this happening. So different kind of routing methods. And also with the new LND, I mean, that will be some kind of it's difficult to imagine what it will come to in terms of affecting the liquidity of channels and how payments will go through. But these multi-part payments, now they're activating LND. The team is activating the sending of multi-part payments as well in the next release, which is like imminent. So then, one payment won't affect only one channel's.
Yeah, that should help a lot, privacy-wise.
Capacity, but
for the sender.
It can.
So let's go back to receiver privacy now. Why does receiver privacy suck on Lightning?
Right. So that's when it comes to that. In every invoice, you have this web page which is called lightningdecoder.com. You can decode any invoice. But obviously, your node does it with like LNCLI decode payrack, for example. But for every implementation, you have this command, and just lists out the public key and the time lock, the amount, and every other variable of the invoice. But basically, you are advertising your public node, your public key of your node, even if it's a private node with only private channels. You need to tell the sender where to send the payment, and also if it's a private only node, you need to advertise the route towards it as well. So if you have only private channels, you need to tell the sender that, look, these are the channels you need to come through, because you can reach my kind of direct peer, which is a routing node, obviously, must be. But from there, you need to come through these private channels, so you're exposing yourself from there. And that cannot be routed. I mean,
so
had a nice chat with like the Twitter account and like Breeze Wallet and like Async, and they said that, for example, Phoenix, which is the only implementation which uses trampoline routing, where you basically just send to the async node, and then they will sort out to get it to the actual mobile wallet, the Phoenix wallet. They use fake channel IDs when you are sending an invoice from the Phoenix wallet. So basically, there you are private. Your channel is private towards the whole world except async.
Mm-hmm.
So
you're just depending
that is a trade-off there.
It's because if you know the
So how
channel ID, you know the funding UTXOs.
Yes, exactly, and that was not clear to me completely for a couple of hours ago when I actually asked this question to I just showed an invoice of a node which is completely private, and then I think Fiat Jeff was the first to kind of reply to it with the funding TX ID. So I mean, it's so easy to prove things in Bitcoin. So this theory is gone.
So what's the best way to mitigate? Like just try to transact with people you trust and send an invoice over encrypted channels or something like that?
Yeah, well, you don't even need to do that. You just want to be the receiver and the sender at the same time. So if, for example, I withdraw from BitMEX or Bitfinex, that is the Lightning node, right? I'm not using this KYC exchange anyway, but I withdraw from there. I take my mobile wallet, let it be Breeze, for example, because I mean, I would say Finex, but still you are exposing yourself for async to know about your transactions. So let it be Breeze or let it be Zap, right? Like a neutral node running on your phone, or let it be a Lightning app by Lightning Labs. And you receive the payment there, and then you just pay it out to your wallet of choice, either to your node or your other Lightning wallet, maybe running on the same phone. And then Bitfinex will not know where those sets have ended up. They just only seen that, well, it was paid out to the mobile wallet, but then from there it's gone.
So you sort of have a quasi hot wallet that is going to be exposed that automatically disperses it to another wallet that only you know.
So, I mean, security-wise, it's not exposed. It's just like privacy-wise, it is more exposed than the one which would be the next hop, right? Because then only you would know that you have sent those sets. I mean, unless someone is like constantly probing the Lightning network, like as you discussed, which is unlikely, and we would see that happen as well. Only you know that you have sent that withdrawal to your other wallet, and there you go.
Yeah. There's so much to think about. There's so much to build. That's what we were saying with the media yesterday. Like, we're so early on in this game.
Yeah.
People don't give Bitcoin enough credit. Like, we're so early.
Yeah, I mean, the question is, should you automatize these things? I mean, do you need this kind of privacy? Well, it depends. I mean, it's very important to have the way and accessible to everyone. But, I mean, most people won't be worried about if they would withdraw from Bitfinex and then they would keep paying their, I don't know, lunch and coffee from that, right? Or Phoenix, and if Phoenix would know about my grocery shops, right? I mean, yeah, Visa and MasterCard and, all my providers already know it. And they probably have like a card which I show them every time I buy something as well. But the important thing, I can go to shop. Well, at the moment, not so much, but still can pay with cash, right? So I have the option. If I don't want to expose myself, then I can just hand over my the change and the things, the freshly printed what we have here, British pounds, right? They are literally freshly printed. They're coming out. You're the first one touching them, and they are numbered in order because they just changed a couple of the bills. Go to the ATM, and then you can use that.
That option is becoming less and less available, though. They want to take the cash away.
My thought process is, what I want to see is, in 5 years, I want to be able to go to a store and buy some milk at and pay their BTC Pay server with Lightning, and they don't know which UTXOs funded the transaction, and my employer who paid me Bitcoin for my salary doesn't know that I bought milk. And I think like that's like a nice base level privacy for like the average user, for it to be accessible to them. If we could get to that point, and I think we're kind of close to it, that would be a big achievement.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you think it's true in practice, I mean, you wouldn't receive your salary on the wallet you are having with you when you are going to shop for milk, right? So you would do that hop anyway. You just get it into a Lightning wallet and you transact to a private one of yours, a mobile wallet of yours, and you're basically just having the cash around.
Yeah, now we're getting into, but this is like a whole like new way, like rewiring of the brain of how people think, right? People are used to getting money in their bank account and spending it straight from there. But I think it will come with time. And I mean, it is already intuitively, for me personally, starting, just the way you have to interact with the protocol and then Lightning, you find that these practices just are developed naturally.
Yeah, I mean, you will find parallels. I mean, if I get my salary on my debit card with the bank account, and I spend from my credit card, it's quite the same, isn't it? Except, I mean, not in the back. I mean, the user experience can be very, very similar on the surface. I mean, it's nowhere near similar under the surface.
At the network level, yeah. Dang, we have to run to a call here soon, Matt. But we should. Is there anything particular that you're excited about right now in the space that we should touch on before we wrap up here?
Right. I mean, I'm extremely excited about all the software which is like getting actively developed, and we're trying to play with it, implement it, and just use it. I would say that run your nodes, run a Bitcoin node if nothing else, but then run a Lightning node. It's very good for routing, for privacy, for playing with the new technology, and then you might want to run more than one because you would want to use different hot wallets, and that would be the safest bet to just keep them separate. If you are keeping significant amount of money, don't even think of not having like a $200, $300 worth of hardware helping with it, right? I'm not speaking about hardware wallets, but the nodes itself, where you can actually verify your things and keep them safe. Look into it. It's all fun. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, then you're too early, I guess.
No, I said that many times in the past. I think the Bitcoin revolution is going to be joined with a hardware revolution. It's going to be necessary. And as somebody who's not been a fan of building computers or writing software or anything like that, like I've run more hardware in the last 6 years than I ever did up to this point, other than plugging an Xbox in, which has been fascinating. And luckily we have people like Matt Odell and yourself creating tutorials to make it easier for us dumb freaks out there. And it is getting easier. That's what makes me most bullish, is that this stuff is approachable for us non-tech savvy users as well, and it's getting more approachable by the day.
Yeah, well, I mean, from my point and what we're doing in the rest of this project, I would even feel sorry for people to take away the actual command line output we are showing them, right? I just don't want to obstruct it because it's so beautiful. But you have use cases for different approaches, and that is great. That's why we are all here.
Yeah. Matt, do you have anything else you want to add to this?
The command line GUI war always cracks me up. Command line's great, dude, but if you want more use, you gotta move away from it. It could always be the power user option, but people get scared. They see it, they get really scared.
Well, I mean, you don't need to. I mean, do I want more use of Raspberry? I mean, it's a hacking platform and a wonderful teaching tool, but it's running Bitcoin Core,
Yeah.
And it's running LND. You can run these softwares in many other ways as you like. You can have, and I mean, it might come to that as well, but I will be the one builder because I cannot to do like a web GUI and, run it in a Tor browser, for example. I mean, huge respect to Rootsoul, who is actually coordinating these Christian Rootsoul, who is the lead dev of the splits to kind of prioritize the things and make them work. But most of the time, the thing was to implement the newer things and give people a platform to try their new services out.
No, I
Like
mean, I think the command line makes more sense for the Raspberry Blitz project. But I was more referring to I was going back to JoinMarket, but the app image in the works is fucking fantastic. I just wanted to shill your web store, DIYnodes.com. Openoms, he sent me one of their Raspberry Blitz cases. It's got like the little LCD screen in the top. It's fucking sexy. He like also alluded to it. It's got one of those like Kensington lock holes for like computers, so you can bolt it down to something. So yeah, just free shout out for that. I really enjoyed this conversation. It was a long time coming. I met you once in person. I really enjoyed that conversation as well. So I hope we do have a follow up here, and hopefully it'll be in person when all this bullshit gets past us. But just thank you for your time, and thank you for everything you've been doing.
Yeah. Echo that. Hopefully we get to meet in person and in the same time zone at a happy hour and get to. I mean, you two enjoyed some whiskey. We're gonna have 5-drink Matt on Rabbit Hole Recap tonight at this pace, drinking straight out of the bottle like a savage. But Openoms, thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. I mean, it's just infinitely exciting to see people like you getting drawn to this project and just picking up where people are leaving stuff and like, hey, I'm going to build on top of this. And you've built a lot in a short amount of time. So again, keep up the great work and really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, I will keep sharing, and please, I'm so grateful for you guys for, sharing all your knowledge and stories as well. So thanks a lot for inviting me.
No, thank you for listening to the screenshot of your podcast hour. I can't believe you spent that much time listening to TFTC.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It's a good thing, that's quality time always.
Yeah, well, we appreciate it. That's all we got this week, freaks. Peace and love.